Good boss. Next up is Kenny Hilgendorf. As Kenny comes up, real brief here because we do have weather coming in. I will tell you, today we're running one race only. We're running all together. All right? So, Kenny, when Kenny ran 6th grade, the very first time that he ran across and half the season was this. That's how he ran across the finish line. It took about almost a whole season to get him to quit doing that. At the line. So, but with that in mind, he's our captain this year. And I think he doubts himself on being a captain. But I want to tell you, oh no, listen. I met with Seth and Kenny last week in a private meeting. There's a new rule, you have to have 75% participation in order to run in sectional or regionals. We call it the Penn Carmel rule. Because what happens is these guys are laying off all season and then running in sectional. So they have to run 2 varsity races and have 75% participation in the meets. So we have to get Seth in a varsity meet because if he got healthy, he's out. He doesn't get to run. So as I explained this to both Seth and Kenny, a true captain came out. Coach, I understand. I understand why you have to do it. I'm okay. You don't think he's a captain? That's captain material right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenny Hilgendorf.
Man, that was quite the opening. Okay, so I just want to say a few things before I actually start this. So, Luke Snyder kept telling us every single day, well not every single day, every single meet about how the boys team was 4 runners when he was a freshman. And we have grown to 17 boys and 7 girls. And times just keep changing 8 years later. But the reason why I bring that up is because Luke Snyder was the person that I looked up to as a brother, a big brother in running. And I just wanted to be that big brother for all of you guys when I tried to do my best as captain. And the speech that I'm about to read, the first half I wrote last year after listening to everybody have their speeches, and I wrote it that day. So I don't know exactly what is going to be in the first half. And I know that I was a little more immature last year. So, here we go. It says, warning, very long, do not open, because this is for senior night only. I joined when I was a freshman, or in 6th grade. I joined because I wasn't good at anything with a ball. And swimming alone wasn't enough for me in middle school, I guess. So my family has no runners, and I was kind of confused as to why I ended up liking cross country, but I stuck with it when I joined. And in 6th grade, I was a wimp, and I was half the height I am now, and I had no idea what I was doing there. I remember my first mock meet, I finished last with this big dad who I never got to figure out whose dad it was, and I ended up 8th grade winning a race, and I have no idea how I came that far just in 3 years. I got so much bigger, it was insane. Just through running and swimming. And the first day I doubted I would be able to handle running every day as a team, but I decided to stick with it, and after 3 long and hard days, I was able to love cross country. And I finally found somewhere where I finally felt like I was a real big part of it, even though I wasn't a good runner at all. I felt like I was part of the team and I was helping them win, even though I didn't even understand how scoring worked. And it was when we won conference as a team, my sixth grade year, that I realized this was the family that I wanted to stick with and I loved. In seventh grade, I became a top 7 runner because my testosterone was starting to kick in. I learned how the scoring system actually worked when Coach Hudson explained to me that I was in top 7, and that's where the points were working at. And I didn't even realize top 7 was where we scored at until he did that. And then 8th grade was my favorite year because every goal I set for myself, I accomplished. And the one reason that I felt like it was my year was because I had my first place, I already mentioned this, and that year also felt like my year because it was the last one that I thought I'd have with Coach Hudson. But when I went to high school cross country, he thankfully came with me. And you guys have no idea how thankful I was. I was so scared that I was going to have to learn how to run with a new coach, and I was going to have to do all this hard mileage. But then I found out that Coach Hudson was going to high school, and I knew I had to do cross country then. So I was brave enough to keep going and run those extra miles. So as a freshman, I finally got to really become a part of the cross-country family. We were more mature now, and instead of talking about farts in middle school and relationships that wouldn't last more than a month or two, we learned, and in 8th grade when we learned about sex ed. Instead, in high school, we talked about all the memories we had together and the high school drama and relationships we think might last forever and who's pregnant now and what terrible things we did without our parents knowing.
Or coach.
In my freshman year, my heart was broken by having to say goodbye to Luke Snyder, Hudson Thornton, and Ellen Fox. That was the moment I realized high school would be a long and hard time, just like a cross-country race. Sophomore year, I improved more and made it to regionals. And I had to say goodbye to runners that really included me and were the definition of what a high school cross-country family should be. Jacob Nichol, Emma Hunt, and Natalie Gutierrez. Junior year felt like it was going to be absolutely terrible at first because now I was an upperclassman that had to be what they were to me, and I actually had homework. I lost the last family members that I had all of the past memories with. Logan Fish, Sea Dog, Dakota, Six Pack, and Mahoney. I wrote this entire speech, well, yeah, I already mentioned that. And now it's my senior year. I've had Coach Hudson for all 7 years, and I am going to go to my senior year. I wrote some stuff last year about senior year, I don't know why. So, here we are, senior year. I never thought that the friends I made in cross country would actually vote for me as their captain, over Bobby and Seth. I'll never be able to thank you all enough for that and explain how shocked I was when I found out that I was going to be captain, and it wasn't because Seth and I tied up. Soon I realized the reason why was because I was so surprised was because I looked up to Seth and how he's been able to overcome an obstacle in his life that no kid should ever have to overcome. And he's still a faster runner than I am. But most of the underclassmen don't know what I do. He's the cross-country brother from another mother who went through leukemia a few years ago, and the rest is something that you should ask him about. I admire how he never brings up his past because he wants to move past it and have fun with what he has in the present. He doesn't look for attention by making people feel bad for him. He doesn't use his past as an excuse to not have to do what everyone else does. He just does as he's told and lives his life like everyone else, but he makes sure to have fun along the way. There's two pieces of advice I want everyone to know, especially my fellow runners, before I can't run for Bremen anymore. And it's not to procrastinate, it's to not procrastinate, and to look up to Seth as an example of how to live a happy life. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and don't make excuses for why you can't challenge yourself. I tried my best this year to follow Seth's example and look for happiness in what God has blessed me with, rather than making excuses for why I can't do my best. My family has been through a lot this year, and I purposefully tried to keep it very quiet because I didn't want any excuses as to why I couldn't make my personal records and move past regionals. Now, I'm not saying everyone should keep everything to themselves. I'm saying that you shouldn't ever have to make any excuses for why you can't do your best. Excuses are a runner's biggest enemy because 80% of the race